you want to build a robot, it kind of has to be a robot. Let's give it a try.
Hi, GoBoxers. Today we're going to write a program to check out the data from our motion sensor as we test our shake table. So the first thing I've done is I've connected my motion sensor to D11. I've started up Scratch, and I have started a new program where I'm just checking the value of the motion sensor. Just like all the other sensors we've used, we want to start out by just checking to make sure we're getting the inputs from the sensor we want. If not, maybe you're not plugged in correctly. Maybe you didn't start Scratch correctly, so you want to make sure everything's working before we write any more complicated code. So when I press M, it reads 0 when it's not moving and 1 when it is. This is a digital sensor. Unlike our analog sensor, it doesn't tell us how much it's moving. It's either moving or it's not moving. So you couldn't see me shaking it, but I promise when it was 0, I was leaving it alone. When it was 1, I was shaking it. So hopefully the same thing will happen as you create some earthquakes. So I'm going to go ahead and create a list to keep my data in. I want to keep track of how many times it saw motion, how often that happened. So I don't want to make just one variable. I'm going to make a whole list. Now that I've gone ahead and made a list, I just called it data, but you could call it anything you wanted to. I can treat it just like a variable. And every time I press the R key, R for record data maybe you want E for earthquake, up to you. The first thing I'm going to do, just like I always initialize my variables, I'm also going to initialize my list. So to do that, I'm going to say whatever information might be there in my list, delete it all. If there's 317 things in there, I don't want any of them. I'm starting over. Then I need to decide how many times am I going to check? I could use a repeat 10. I could, if you think back to last time, I could say keep checking until I tell you I'm done. I think that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and say until I press X. Just keep checking it out. Keep adding things. And then I'm going to start checking on what's going on with that motion sensor. So I'm going to broadcast motion. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the current value of my motion sensor, whatever it is right now. And it's my only choices are 1 or 0, right? It's a digital sensor, so it's telling me it's moving or it's not moving. But whatever that is, I'm going to add it to my list. I don't need to check again immediately. Earthquakes are fast, but they're not going to come and go away in microseconds here when you shake your shake table. I'm going to use 1/4 of a second. You might want to use a little bit longer. You can see how this works out for you. Let's go ahead and see how that looks. Okay, earthquake. Oh, the earthquake stopped. When I press X to end this, I actually press X to end this. I can go back and look and see exactly when my sensor is moving and when it wasn't. You could then go and do all kinds of things with this data. You could create a graph. You could go through and play tones for the amount of times that you saw earthquakes, whatever you wanted to do with that information. But now you can collect sensor information and save it to a list. Can't wait to see all the exciting projects you do with this new ability.